Well, hello, brother friends and sister friends. Welcome back to the Heart Set Above podcast. I'm here with some breaking news for you. I hate being misunderstood. And I think deep down, most of us do. A few years ago, my friend Morgan, who's also my co host on the Strength and Weakness podcast, she asked me a question that stopped me in my tracks. Morgan, who is as extroverted as they come, couldn't wrap her head around why I, an introvert, needed so much time to process my thoughts and emotions before sharing them with someone else. So she asked me, why do you need to think about these things before you say them? And I paused because I had never stopped to consider why this was necessary for my introverted mind and heart. And I answered as honestly as I could, because I don't want to be misunderstood. Morgan nodded knowingly and said, "That's exactly what my husband said, another introvert." It was a light bulb moment for her, but for me, it felt like a truth I hadn't fully put into words before then. Being misunderstood isn't just a little annoyance for me. It's a deep pain. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I even see this in therapy. As a marriage and family therapist, I've come to see how deeply misunderstanding is tied to the human condition. In my work with countless couples, I can confidently say that almost all relational conflicts, probably about 99% of them, stem from some form of misunderstanding. If we had perfect eyes to truly see and fully know one another, so much of the pain and miscommunication we experience could be avoided. Instead, misunderstandings often leave us feeling unseen, unknown, and disconnected, amplifying a deep ache that we all carry in our hearts. I think this longing to be understood, to be fully known, is tied to something much deeper, a longing for Eden. Eden was a place of perfect connection with God, with ourselves, with others, and with all of creation. There, vulnerability wasn't met with judgment or rejection like it often is now in a fallen world. It was met with perfect love and adoration. It was a place where we were fully known and seen, fully exposed, yet still perfectly loved. The problem is we don't live in Eden anymore, but our hearts were created for it. And we carry the ache of that loss with us every single day. That's why being misunderstood feels so devastating. It's not just about the moment, it's about the deeper longing to be known and loved that goes unfulfilled. So, of course, God, in his infinite wisdom, placed me, someone who hates being misunderstood, in a profession that often feels like an invitation to be wholly misunderstood. As a therapist and as someone who often serves in the messy middle of conversations around faith, sexuality, gender, and identity, I've had my words misinterpreted countless times. I remember one situation where I was speaking to a group about bridging the gap between the LGBTQ community and God's church. I spent hours preparing, carefully choosing my words to reflect both love and truth. And no matter how much thought I put into it, some people walked away misunderstanding my heart, hearing only what their emotions and experiences allowed them to. And I get it. When emotions run high, it's easy to misinterpret someone's intentions. But it's still exhausting. It leaves me feeling isolated, drained, and honestly lonely. And my experience with being misunderstood only deepened when I became a parent. One of my biggest fears is that my kids will go through life feeling unseen or unknown. And that fear became sharper when we found out that my youngest son has autism. The raw nerve of misunderstanding was exposed in a whole new way. Would people see him as defiant because he doesn't make eye contact with them, or because he responds in a way that they don't expect? Would they miss the beauty of his tender heart because they didn't understand that his brain works a little bit differently than theirs does? I even bought stickers for him to wear in public that say, "Please be kind. I have autism." It's my way of trying to shield him from the pain of being misunderstood. And if I'm honest, this is where the ache of being misunderstood feels most personal for me. It's not just about me anymore. It's about protecting someone I love so profoundly from the pain of being unseen and misjudged. So here's a true confession. One Sunday, as I was sitting in church reflecting on all the ways misunderstanding shows up in my life, I found myself getting really upset with God. In that moment, I felt overwhelmed by it. If I was going to have an autistic child and live with the raw, exposed nerve of misunderstanding in that way, did I really also have to serve in this messy middle space around sex, sexuality, and gender, a space where that same nerve gets poked and prodded so sharply? It felt like too much. And I found myself asking God, why would you allow so many layers of misunderstanding to be such a defining part of my life and now my children's lives? And in that quiet moment of wrestling, God gently reminded me of something profound, that he too knows what it's like to be misunderstood. Think about it. Throughout Scripture, God is constantly misrepresented, misjudged, and rejected by the very people he loves. From the Israelites grumbling in the wilderness to the Pharisees twisting Jesus' words, he has endured millennia of being misunderstood. And yet, he doesn't withdraw. He doesn't withhold his love or stop pursuing us. Instead, he continues to draw near, even when we question his motives or doubt his goodness. If I, a flawed human, feel the sting and isolation of misunderstanding so deeply, how much more must God feel it? How much must it pain him when his beloved creation misunderstands his intentions or doesn't trust his heart? So this realization has shifted my perspective. When I feel the ache of being misunderstood in this fallen world, it's an invitation to connect with God in his own experience of that pain. Instead of turning inward and dwelling on my own hurt, which I can tend to do, I can instead use it as a moment to develop compassion for a God who is so often misunderstood by me and by all of the people that he loves. It's a chance to remind myself that his heart is for us, even when we don't fully understand his ways. So here's my encouragement to you, brother friend and sister friend. The next time you feel misunderstood, let it be a reminder to pause and consider how God feels. Let it deepen your trust in his goodness and faithfulness, even when his ways don't make sense to you. And as you do that, may it help you keep your heart set above, seeking to know and love the one who understands you perfectly, even in a world so far from Eden.